I did it right. Good morning, everyone. You're stuck with me. This is Fran Lewis. This is MJ Network. MJ in memory of my sister, Marcia Joyce, who got me started on this whole thing. And it's a good thing she told me I weighed like a couch potato, and she started me to do this. So, Susan Silverman is here, and this book has to be unique because it's not a murder mystery. It's hilarious. And there's a whole bunch of essays, unapologetic essays, word grenades logged into an I can't see this. Otherwise complacent forgetfulness. Throughout the collection, Sue William Silverman forces and globe a pivotal, often fleeting moments that define. It's hard to see in here. Define the course of her life. Well, I have to tell you, this is hilarious, and I laughed through the entire thing. So, how did you come up with this? How did you come up with the essay? And I love what you said that the mercy of the reader.
Yeah,
And I have people that want to read this, by the way. I told them to go on Amazon.
excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, how I came up with this is it's been sort of a bit of a journey because I started out writing long form, like memoirs, like 250-page memoirs. And I needed a new challenge as a writer, so thought that I would just try these. So Selected Misdemeanors is a collection of flash essays, which and flash means that they're very short. And so there's 71 of them in the book, and I just wanted to kind of challenge myself and grow as a writer, and that's what I did. So that's how I kind of came up with the idea of trying to, write something really short, but yet that was meaningful.
Now, some of these hit home, I have to tell you. The first part is called Strange Entanglements. Yeah, I can identify with that. And my father had a very close friend that was very famous in the music business and theater, so I got to go to the Apollo Theater. Oh,
Wow.
yes. I was introduced to Smokey Robinson and Diana Ross and everybody later on. And then he was friends with whoever owned the Ed Sullivan Show, whatever that was. And I got to go to all these things. And I had to act intelligently, couldn't whatever. So how did you start it with the Apollo Theater? Because I love the Apollo Theater.
Well, this may be disappointing to you, but this is not the Apollo
I
Theater.
know.
This is the Apollo Theater in. I grew up in St. Thomas in the West Indies, so this was just a small movie theater, and the first essay starts off with actually a live magician. So it's not a movie that So I've gone to see this live magician, and I really, I was like maybe in second grade, third grade, something like that. So I was pretty young, and I just wanted to sort of be part of this magic show. So when he asked for volunteers, I rushed up to the stage. I did not want to be left off. And I think it's because I had a rather unhappy childhood. And so just this idea of magic and being part of his magic show, I felt like that would sort of make me be more special, like a special little girl, and kind of stand out from the crowd. So I started off, so that's the first essay in the book is about my experience with this magician.
That sounds like so much fun. My father used to get me in trouble all the time because he was friends with people that were producers in television shows, and I got stuck sitting in the audience, and I didn't want to go to some of these places. It's like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
can't. Why me? Now, page 58. This essay. I said I keep the book in front of me so I know. The silence detector. How did you create that? I'd like to give some people a silence detector.
So the silence detector is I was in 10th grade in high school. And by that time, I lived in New Jersey, and a new girl came to school in 10th grade, and she was really beautiful, and she wanted to be a professional singer and a movie star and all of that. And I felt kind of not particularly attractive, and I was certainly wasn't like glittery, and she had all this makeup on and everything. So I just really kind of had a kind of girl crush on her, and I wanted to be like her. But then, as it turns out, she also had an unhappy childhood and adolescence. But I found out when I visited her house, but nobody talked about it, so that's what silence. So in other words, she presented this really beautiful exterior that tended to hide the interior of what was going on with her and her family. And so this idea of silence, that people can look okay on the outside. We can present ourselves as
Yeah.
being, very together and having, happy families and everything, but you never know what that exterior is hiding. So that's the silence, basically, is what is going on inside a lot of homes that nobody talks about.
I know because people used to judge me by the way I look. They still do. And I got really upset when I walk in. I walked into somewhere the other day and my hair's different colors because I like it.
It's cool.
And yeah, there's a reason, but that's beside the point. And my hairdresser picks the colors. And I walked in one day and this lady looked at me and I go, "Do you have a problem? Why do you wear your hair like that?" I said, "Because you don't." And she just looked at me. I said, "Well, you know what? You can come to the Bronx and get it done too." What can I tell you? You know what? I don't care. People used to judge me because I was 200 pounds. I weigh 93. It's a long story. And I can't stand when people judge you by the way you look and by how you
Exactly.
are. And I have an IQ that's way up there. And people resent that when you're smart. You know how it feels to be smart. And I never hide the fact. I don't hide the fact that I'm smart and too bad. Now this essay was hilarious. It says misdemeanors consider the time she was married to her husband, yearning for another man who didn't show up. I know about a whole bunch of people. How did you come up with these misdemeanors? And I love the bottom part where it says man gone, lens shot, stopped or not. Where did you come?
Right.
I crack up laughing.
Well, so that what you just read there is part of a photo essay. So
Yeah.
throughout the book, there are 13 photographs, and each one is kind of its own standalone essay. So with a long title and then those three short lines at the end. That's the essay part. And in some ways, these photo essays work as a kind of through thread throughout the book. So they help kind of hold the book together. And I just wanted to kind of experiment with this book and try different things. And so this idea of photo essays, that's how that evolved. Just really trying to kind of push the boundaries and sort of push the envelope of what we could do in creative nonfiction.
I felt like I was going through them myself, to be honest. Now, this one, who are these are you the person in the picture?
Oh, yeah,
The,
these are
the
all
pictures are
me.
gorgeous. They're gorgeous. Yeah, I said, yeah. I can
Thank
figure it out
you.
because I could tell from this one. So misdemeanor considered the first of many jobs which she would fill. I know how that feels. Not interested in the marriage of legislature or capital, much less accept meeting congressmen named behind closed doors. I started teaching in my school, never mind when. The assistant principal was a family friend, and the principal wanted me to fail because he didn't hire me, she did, walking down the street. So they gave me 36 discipline problems in grade six. And I don't mean fresh, I mean dangerous, really
Yeah.
dangerous. And to be very honest, I'm little, and then I weighed more. And the kids looked at me, and I took 2 weeks. I straightened their butts out big time.
Good for you.
They never knew. They knew more bad words than I did, but I knew more than them. So I put all the bad words on the board, and the ones that are in the dictionary. And I asked them what they mean. They couldn't define them or read them. I said, in that case, only I could use them. And I just that was it. Plus the
Yeah.
fact that I failed all of them, I took care of it on their report cards. So now, this one is the postcard greeting. How did you come up with that? That is really good. I had
Thank
so
you.
much fun. It was hard to pick out the ones I wanted to talk about.
Thank you. Yeah, so the book also, in addition to these so in other words, the book sort of has 3, different kinds of essays. One are just sort of traditional, straightforward essays, although they are flash, which means that they're short. But then there
Yeah,
are also these photo essays that we just talked about. And then the third thing are these postcard essays. So they're really postcards that I, as narrator, sort of send to my future self to sort of enable me to kind of look back and think about the past. So I think there are maybe 6 of these postcard essays that are also kind of sprinkled throughout the book.
my mother never let me write on postcards. For
Why?
real, I had to write letters.
Oh,
The only person I was allowed to write a postcard to was an aerogram to my cousin in Israel,
oh,
because
okay,
I was allowed to write to her because she was my grandfather's niece or something.
okay,
So we became friends, and then when she married her planning officer, I have no idea. She was in Israel and she joined the army, so I have no idea.
yeah.
So I mean, yeah. Now this part really is interesting. How do you explain grieflets?
So
That's
grieflets,
a sad one. Yeah.
yeah. So the idea of griefless, so that's part 2 of the book. So, but let me back up a minute. So again, so these essays are flash essays, which means that they're short.
Well, here it is.
And and if something so I was trying to convey the idea of shortness and briefness kind of throughout the book. And if you just say the word grief, that sounds like something that's really big. But grieflets gives the impression that it's like a small grieflet. And that's what these flash essays are. They're sort of these small,
Yeah.
each essay is sort of a small increment of time, um, which can still sort of uh, let you sort of convey an insight, like a sort of a quick shimmering epiphany. So each one just happens like in this brief moment of time, like a grieflet is like a short grief. It's not like a long ongoing grief. And the brevity of each piece is an attempt to capture that sense of how fleeting these moments of time can be, in the course of a life. I mean, I think that we all do have like big momentous events in our lives, but when you think about all the rest of the time of our lives, our life is made up of lots of just very small moments in between
Sad.
these big events. So that was the idea behind that.
Now the essay I cracked up about his expiration date. This was especially the last part. The last one was hysterical, and
Yeah.
I could imagine somebody doing that. Oh my God! And sandals. But how did you create that one? That is hilarious.
Well, again, it was just like this, so this one is about
Yeah.
flying home from Europe back to the States. I'd been on vacation. I sat next to this man, uh, and we had a small sexual encounter on the plane. And it's just, again, it's one of these very brief moments of time where you usually don't think to write a writer maybe
Mm.
doesn't usually think to write about just some sort of these fleeting moments,
Yeah.
but that was sort of the goal of this whole collection, was to be able to focus on a very brief moment and try to make sense of it, like what is sort of the meaning behind these brief moments in time, because everything does have meaning if you write it, if you search for the meaning.
That I know. When I was so heavy, my sister said, "Why don't you write a book?" She was sorry she ever opened her mouth because
Why?
I was told when I was teaching and I did writing and everything. I said to the kids, "Write what you know about." So if I give you a topic, no matter what it is, write what relates to you. Don't worry about your grammar and stuff because it doesn't matter. So I said to her, "I'm going to write what I know about." I wrote growing up in the South Bronx with my sister. She wanted to kill me because it
Oh,
was Bertha. I'm Bertha because I was like this, and she was beautiful. My sister, she was a dancer in Broadway shows. She sang everywhere, and she was like this. So I wrote about her being selfish brat, and me being the poor kid that had to do everybody's homework. And when she read the book, she wanted to kill me. And the book is on bad publisher, but there were lessons at the end, so teachers were able to use it to ask questions about what I wrote. So it was, my name is Bertha. Bertha speaks out and Bertha fights back. And I put it all together right before she died with two sisters from the Bronx. And she probably still hates me wherever she is up there. But they were true stories. But
Yeah.
this is hard because I mean everybody writes sad sometimes and you can't help it. And so on 150 how did you create essays that are so sad? And sometimes I just felt so bad for the character. I wanted to send them a tissue or send them some hope.
Aw, that's so sweet. Well, it's really just sort of writing, the things that move you and the things that you don't yet understand. Like, I don't know sort of how I feel or really think about something until I write them. So this was an opportunity, as I say, to look at these sort of shortish moments of time and try to make sense of them. And even if they're sad, it's important because by writing them and discovering like the metaphor, the experience, or what they really meant to me, then I can kind of feel better about them in a way because I've sort of delved into inside that experience to make sense of it. And once we understand what something meant, or once we better understand ourselves, then the experience does feel lighter.
It's hard because some people don't want to understand themselves at all,
Oh, I
and
know.
people don't want to face reality,
I
and
know.
that's the hard part. I
I
mean,
know.
I know a lot of people in my family that need to face reality. Other people do also. So
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I know for my nieces, if they want to face reality, they call their aunt.
There you go.
They do. Yeah, this morning my niece texted me. She have a problem. What do I do? I go, this is what you do. Don't worry about it. I got it. I got you. So the ones these are hysterical. Misdemeanor considers. How did you come up with these with that misdemeanor considers? Because you know what, there are times I thought about what they said and I wanted to do the same thing.
Well, what that idea that so with these photo essays,
Yeah,
they're all written is through the persona of Miss, like MISS, demeanor. And based on, so the title of the book, of course, is Selected Misdemeanors. So I had these photo essays, but I didn't really have a persona for the person, for the narrator in the photos. So I was just looking at the word misdemeanors and I thought, oh, her name could be Misdemeanors, and I just took that from the title.
this one I love. You know, I didn't go on too many dates because I was like not the prettiest thing on the world, so I didn't go on dates. And when I did, my mother used to give me a questionnaire about what I was allowed to talk about, and I had to carry it in my pocket. It was hilarious. Then when I came home, she questioned me to see if I answered the question. I never wanted to go anywhere. So Mr. Minnie considered she was married to her husband, yearning for another one, requiring to let go. Did you ever go out on a date and pray that he didn't show up a second time?
Oh, yeah.
I did, yeah. And my mother would say, well, why don't you give him another chance? I said, because I hated him the first time. And, you have to be careful because they think that just because you're going out, it means that they're going to have some fun.
Yeah,
Definitely not.
yeah.
I mean, the best part was when I came home, my father was 400 pounds. He was sitting on the chair in the living room when I came home with the guy. And he was said, if he's not asking you to go out, tell the jerk to leave. For real, which was not a problem. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that when you don't like somebody and you hope he never comes back?
Yeah, you just, like, don't answer the phone, just say
Yeah,
no, just say, "Nope, sorry, I'm busy." You
yeah,
just don't go because, life is too short to waste time on people you
yeah.
don't care about, right?
These I love though. The Miss Apple ones. with Dear Future Me, and the other one is Does Dear Future Me New York City Big Apple. These, how did you create? This is hilarious. I love this.
Yeah, it's just, the creation doesn't come right away. Of course, most of writing is like revising and rewriting. And it's really just sort of sitting with the moment and letting it reveal itself. Like I remember these vacations when we went to New York City. Um, and and just sort of like what it meant to me, because it was like I'd never lived in a big city, and so New York was sort of overwhelming, and the things that really spoke to me were like, they used to have these automats, the Horn and Hardart automats, and I was just like so, blown away by stuff like that. So, it's a matter of kind of writing about it to understand why, like, what did that mean to me?
That's amazing. So, I mean, I felt like sometimes I was living like I was living through these things.
Well, that's good. That's the point. I mean, the point, of course, as a writer is to write in such a way that you can bring the reader inside the experience with you. So that's, what I was trying to do. So I'm really pleased that you felt that you were.
That's why I read so many of them. Now, this is great. This one is so hilarious. The origin of her superpowers.
Yeah. So that's very
Wouldn't you wish?
speculative. That's very speculative. And so speculative nonfiction is writing almost sort of like that one is written almost like a fairy tale. So
Yeah,
it's emotionally true. And and that's what's important in creative nonfiction, to be emotionally true. But I did write it kind of like as a fairy tale, like that the narrator finds this a velvet worm, which actually is a thing. These velvet worms are like a gazillion billion years old, and I guess they still exist. I don't know where, but I read about them, and they have like these worms have these superpowers, like that
I
they,
wish.
yeah, right, like that they can sort of paralyze like an insect that they want to eat. So it was sort of my fantasy as a narrator that I would have the superpowers like these velvet worms.
Now I have before I forget. This is big. I never know who's going to email me that they want an interview, and I am doing one more. I'm doing three the rest of the month, and then I'm not doing any in December and take time off to attempt to write my first murder mystery. Maybe.
Great, that's
Yeah,
great.
I write
Congra-
horror,
that's
and my last book
fantastic.
is called Inverted Reality, and nobody understood him. It's 26 chapters, each having a different character that does something wrong.
Oh
And if they
wow,
don't repent, they relive their action as a face in the mirror forever.
wow,
It's scary, yeah. That's part one. Part two is wrongly accused, accusations. I worked in a school for 37 years and I never did anything wrong. But the principal was a black principal that I loved. And she was accused of doing something and she never did it. And I defended her. And because I defended her, I never got, she put me in for principal when she retired. They wouldn't give it to me because I defended her. They said that I was the writing coordinator, and they said that the writing scores should be changed. The fifth grade took the writing test, and three classes did okay, and two didn't. The teacher scored them, not me.
yeah.
I sent them in, and the board of ed, the head of education testing, called me and said, "You need to change those scores. They're too low. You can't have that." I said, "I'll tell you what. I'm going to put you on with my principal. Whatever she decides, she decides." So I got on the phone with her and she said, "What do you think?" I said, "If you tell me to change the scores and make them higher, you're going to have to get somebody else to do it. I won't do it. But that's up to you." She told them where to go. And she defended me. And because of it, they audited, and the State Department audited all the tests. And I had to send them the practice test, the real test, and the other ones of every grade. And about a month later, they sent me back an apology note and said they would never change even one score. I cracked up laughing, and I said to the district, I said, "See, I told you." But it's it. It's the truth. Now, on Monday the 17th, New York Times author Philip Margolin will be here with False Witness. On the 18th, believe it or not, Janie and Krantz, the shop
Wow.
on Hidden Avenue. The 24th, the number one author in the world, Peter James, Hawk is Dead. On the 8th, R.K. Coretto. On the 12th, Michael Butler with his new book about World War II. And on the 14th, the reason I could do this job, my reading professor from Lehman College. We do streams every couple of months on strategies in reading. So I'm not allowed to decide what we talk about. He does.
Oh,
And I have
that's
to do,
cool.
yeah, it's hard because I have to answer the question. And when
Yeah.
I was in his class, I was too smart, and that was bad. And after that, he would pick on me every week. And then finally, he said, "You're my number one student," so I had to be prepared. And he's still there. He's still with it. He's great. So some of these essays are so emotional, uncertain, and tragic. How come? But they make a point.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's really just that's what I'm drawn to write
Yeah,
is making sense of hard things that happen. And by selected misdemeanors, the title of the book really refers to emotional
yeah.
misdemeanors. There's no crimes like in a legal sense, and I've never served jail time, so it's nothing like that. So the misdemeanors are all emotional misdemeanors, which are sort of transgressions, miscalculations of love, sort of inappropriate relationships with men. Like when I went away to college, when I was a freshman in college, I had an affair with a man who was old enough to be my father, and of course, he was married, and, needless to say, that did not end well, but it was something that, haunted me and stayed with me, so I wanted to understand it, and, so that's what I write about are things that, may be sort of emotionally difficult, but, but I've lived them, and so as a writer, of course, I want to write about them to, to sort of excavate them, understand what these events meant.
This essay was probably my favorite one. Misdemeanor considered the time she stood under the boardwalk at New Jersey shore, location so distant from that love that the pillow was all that held her up in the face of the oncoming storm. And say you have a picture of you, love is here every day. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, once you get dumped, or once the girl's waiting for trouble, once you don't know what's going to happen, sometimes you don't go in the right direction,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
scary. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, that photograph was actually taken at Atlantic City under the boardwalk, and so I was standing next to this pillar, and carved
yeah.
in it, said, "Love is here every day." So I'm sort of leaning against this pillar with that sign, and, and I'm looking sort of tough. I'm wearing a black leather jacket in the cover, but the, narrator is actually feeling very vulnerable.
I wish I could have won that. My mother picked my clothes every day. You don't want to know.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever went, I wish I would have bought something like that. I went to buy at a nice shop on Tremont Avenue. I grew up in the South Bronx, so there weren't too many places. And I went into the store and I said, "I'm here to buy what I want." But she already spoke to my mother, so she picked out a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, "I don't like those." Well, I walked out. I wouldn't buy anything. If it wasn't what I wanted, I didn't buy it.
I don't blame you.
And
Yeah.
even shoes my mother picked out. I said, "You know what?" I was like 15, 16. I said, "I'm old enough to buy what I want." It was right before we moved from the South Bronx to another area in the Bronx. And everyone in my school, um, in junior high school and high school, was very how you look conscious. And I was the big kid, little kid with a big nose, and I was fat, but I was smart.
There
So
you
it didn't
go.
matter. Yeah. And in high school, my last name was the same as my cousin, who was the number one oral surgeon in the world. So the principal, yeah, Mark Swerdlow, he passed away recently. So I went in The principal called me. He said, "Are you related to Mark Swiftliff?" I said, "Yeah, he's my cousin." "What about this one?" I said, "He's my other cousin." He hired me to write secretary for him. The head of the union in the UFT had me doing stuff. At that point, I didn't have to worry about how I looked. The principal was on my side,
There
all
you
because
go.
of my, yeah. So, what is one thing that you hope readers come away with after they read all these essays?
Well, I think one thing that I hope is that sort of by my being kind of vulnerable on the
Yeah,
page and sharing my sort of misdemeanors, sort of the bad choices that I made, places where I went in the wrong direction, that people will sort of be able to kind of admit or face their own misdemeanors and know that we're all human, we all make mistakes,
yeah,
but there's always a motivation for it. Like we don't sort of make these bad choices because we want to. It's just that we haven't really grown to understand ourselves yet. And so I hope that by my being vulnerable and being able to be open and honest about my life, that maybe others will also be able to be, more open and honest about their lives. And particularly if you're listening and you're a writer, to know that it's okay to write about kind of the scary
yeah.
places where we've lived or the emotionally unhealthy things that we've done, and that it's okay to kind of write about those.
I was not allowed to make mistakes ever.
Yeah. I mean, a
And you
lot
know
of
how hard that
people.
was? Yeah. If I got 100 on a math test, it was okay. If I got 99, my mother made me write the test over until I got 100. I was not allowed to make a mistake. If I wrote, and I was good at writing even younger, and she would make my aunt read my writing, and I would say, my aunt would correct it, then I would hand it in my own way. I mean, it was such a point. My mother was PTA president, so it made it worse.
Yeah.
So if I wrote a composition even in class, they thought I was smart. I still could write. Obviously, yeah. So that's probably the hardest thing in the world. So what's coming next? What are the titles you writing?
Well, I don't have a title for the next thing that I'm writing yet because it's just at the very, very beginning stages. But I am trying something new that I haven't written about before. But it's really just, I've barely started, so I'm not even sure where it's going to go because when I write, like I don't predetermine where something's going to go. I sort of just sit with it and let it lead me to where it wants to go. So, and also right now I've just become co-chair of an MFA
Nice,
writing program where I teach. So I teach at Vermont College of Fine Arts. So I've been really
nice,
busy. Yeah, it's really
nice.
nice. Yeah. So I've been very busy with my new job, but so I don't have as much time to write right now. But I think after, the first of the year, I'll be able to get back to it. But we'll see. I'm not, I just,
Well, you can't stop writing. You're too
no.
good.
Yeah, no,
No, yes, you
thank
can't.
you. Yeah, no,
Seriously.
I'll keep writing for sure. It's just and the new book is going to be another creative nonfiction, but we'll just see where it goes.
Well, my new book, if I attempt to write it, is called "You Can't Hide,"
And that's
and
true.
it's
That's
about, yeah, you
true.
can't hide, and it's gonna have three characters and what they did, and I have to decide how I want to kill them off. And
Good for you.
what I'm gonna do. It's kind of hard. It's
Well,
not my style. I'm used to writing, this thing with mirror image I wrote out of nowhere because I went to the cemetery to visit my sister. And I said, if you could tell me why the heck you're here, because you died under unsuspicious circumstances, I said, what would you tell me? So I walked around the cemetery. I asked a whole bunch of people. And I said, what would happen if all these people could talk from behind a mirror? What would they do? So I did. The first was Faces Behind the Stones. And it's true stories of real people that told this story behind the stone. And one of them was a teacher in my school.
oh
I told
wow.
my sister's story, and it just blew up into a whole bunch of other ones. And I don't know why I wrote it, but I just did. I just felt like sometimes you have to say what you're thinking. But
Yeah.
which is your favorite selected misdemeanor of all of them before we close? But
Oh,
people want this. They're not getting that. This is too funny.
One of them might be is called unliminality,
Yeah.
and it's, so the narrator in the book, I've just separated from my husband. I was living in Galveston, and I moved to Houston,
Uh-huh.
and it's just about sort of being kind of lost in this big city of Houston and driving around all the
Uh-huh.
interstates. And I'm in sort of this liminal state, like I'm neither here nor there. I'm just doing like temp jobs, earning like $5 an hour, and but I like sort of the energy of the essay. It's in that I think it sort of connects with sort of the vibe and all the rushing around in Houston. And I'm working part time in these oil companies as a temp worker, and then I'm working part time in a record store. So you've got sort of the music and working in an oil company, and it's just sort of about being in a liminal space where, which I think a lot of people can identify with, where you've sort of left a home or a relationship, and
Mhm.
you're sort of in a space, but you haven't quite landed in the next place where you're going to go. So you're in this sort of in between space, and I think a lot of us can feel that we're sort of in between spaces when
Mhm.
we've, maybe broken up with somebody or gotten a divorce, something, or lost a loved one. So I kind of like that essay.
I miss my dad. My
Yeah.
my dad was my savior. My father always said to me, I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong. And he also told me, which I'm still like that, if you can't get an answer from one person, I don't care how many people you have down, don't stop till you get the answer you want. And I get criticized for that, but you know what? It works.
There you
But
go.
this has been fun. Let me go end the stream so that everybody, I'll be back on Monday with Philip Wagerlin with False